pull an extra chair out for us.
There's missing a chair there. We're missing it. Oh,
They're on right now.
Sorry, I thought we were doing treasurer first.
Okay, are we ready? Hello, I'm Maureen Hunt. I'm president of Hermosa Beach Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Bureau, and I want to extend a nice warm welcome to all of you for joining us here tonight at our candidates debate. And before we get started, I'd like everyone to rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank each of you for coming here tonight. The Chamber is proud to sponsor the candidates debate, and we hope tonight's debate will give you the opportunity to get to know the candidates a little better and to make an informed decision in the upcoming election. There's a couple of people I'd like to thank here tonight first before we get started. One being the Beach House for hosting this event, this lovely venue that we have. And I also want to thank Mike Bell from Bell Event Services for providing all the audio visual. With that, I'd like to turn the program over to our moderator and Chamber Board member, Michael Goergen.
Thank you, Maureen. I knew to say that because the script right here says, thank you, Maureen. Thank you. It's truly my pleasure to serve as your moderator for this year's Hermosa Beach Chamber of Commerce candidates debate. We just want to remind everybody, if you didn't already know, that the Hermosa Beach municipal election is coming up on Tuesday, November 5th. And we certainly encourage everybody to show up and vote. Just a little bit about me and why I'm up here, and why I volunteered for this gig. I'm the Vice President of Membership for the Hermosa Beach Chamber, and I hope all of you in this room are already members of the Chamber, right? Right? Good. Okay. I'm also the Chairman of the Ambassadors Committee. If anyone wants to serve as an ambassador, please get in touch with me. We'd love to have you support the Chamber. I'm also the past President of the Hermosa Beach Kiwanis Club. I simply mentioned that to avoid a $1 fine next Wednesday. I'm a practicing attorney here in Hermosa Beach. I've lived here for 18 years. So like everyone else in this room, yeah, please remember to turn off your cell phones. Sorry to single you out, I just always wanted to do that to somebody. Like everyone else in this room, I feel I have a vested interest in the outcome of this election. My family and I are anxious to see how the election comes out. Tonight, we are pleased to present to you 7 candidates running for 3 open council seats in the next election. However, before we introduce them, well, there they are. But before we introduce them, also on the ballot for the upcoming election, we have 2 candidates running for the position of treasurer. We have Karen Nowicki and J.R. Radisky. At this time, we're going to invite each of those candidates to come forward to give a short statement about their positions in policy as treasurer if they're elected. And they'll each have 3 minutes. So we're going to start with Karen. Karen?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming tonight. And thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for putting on this event. My name is Karen Nowicki, and I am running for Hermosa Beach City Treasurer. And I'm running for City Treasurer because I have a love for the city, and I want to be able to offer my education and experience in finance and accounting so that I can give back to the city in a meaningful way. Right now, the city is in need of a finance professional who can safely manage our taxpayers' dollars. So I'd like to share with you a little bit about my background and share with you some of the qualifications that I have for this important city position. I'm a certified public accountant. I have a master's in business with a finance emphasis. I also have a bachelor's in science degree in accounting, both from Pepperdine University. I have my own accounting practice here in Hermosa Beach. It's called KSS Accounting. And I also serve as a chief financial officer for a growing and successful healthcare nonprofit organization. I am certified in financial forensics and have previously worked as a forensic accountant. In addition, I proudly serve as an elected board member for the Chamber of Commerce and as an elected board member and treasurer of Leadership Hermosa Beach. I've lived in the city for 5 years and own a home here in Hermosa. My husband, Ryan Nowicki, is an attorney who specializes in nonprofit and business law. I have 2 children, Jessica's 25 and Adam is 23, who's currently living in Hermosa Beach. As far as the financial state of our city, I believe that obtaining financial stability in today's political and economic environment is critical. The Office of City Treasurer is primarily responsible for maintaining the city's investment portfolio. I plan to seek out safe and secure investment opportunities for your taxpayer dollars and while increasing the returns on your investment. As your elected city treasurer, I will engage a seasoned approach to money management focused on the safety of our dollars, the liquidity of our investments, and the yield of our city's portfolio in that order. I am dedicated to serving this community and to fulfilling the important job of professionally managing our $30+ million investment portfolio. It's more important than ever that we have a treasurer who has the experience to safely manage our taxpayer dollars. And with my education and background, I offer a fresh new beginning to the Office of City Treasurer, one based on integrity, professionalism, education, and relevant financial experience. For these reasons and more, I respectfully ask for your confidence and your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is J.R. Ravisky, and I'm running for the Office of Treasurer. I'd like to thank the Chamber for hosting this event and inviting both me and Karen to speak for the important guys over here. Where is it? On the advice of my wife, I had some prepared comments here, but she said throw them away. So on the advice of Ronald Reagan, I decided to trust and verify. So, one of the first things people ask me about running for treasurer is, why are you doing this, JR? I mean, you've been involved in this community for decades. And, you know, that's precisely why I'm doing it. I have been blessed to live in this community for a long, long time. This is where my heart and my soul is. This is where I learned how to surf, learned how to skimboard. Remember skimboards, any of you guys? You don't see them anymore, you know? Well, that was a big deal back in the 60s. And I came from a family that taught me to give back. And I've been given so much by this community. And I've tried for most of my adult life to give back, and I want to continue to do that. The Treasurer's Office is an interesting position. The guidelines for how the Treasurer can invest city's inactive funds are very restrictive, set forth by the state of California and further defined by the City Council. So there's very limited avenues that we can invest our revenues, and rightly so, because as Karen said, we want to look for number one, safety, number two, liquidity. And liquidity is important because we do not always get, we don't draw a paycheck in the city of Hermosa Beach. We don't get money regularly like those of you that have a job and those like me that are on Social Security. We get our money in chunks, primarily property taxes, which come twice a year, and then sales taxes and other taxes, which come at various intervals. So there needs to be liquidity in our budgets so we can make our payrolls, because we have employees that we have to pay every 2 weeks. And I'm down to 30 seconds. I was going to talk more about my past, but they only gave me 3 minutes. But anyway, I've spent 16 years on City Council. In those 16 years, I prepared budgets for our community. I reviewed audits. The city gets audited every year. And I also set, when I was on the council, set the budget or set the investment policy for the city treasurer. I know city finances. I know I can do this job. I know what the job is. I know exactly what the job is. And I ask for your vote on November 5th. And Matt tells me I'm out of time. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen and JR. The only comment I would have in response to that is, Ryan, if you need to talk to a lawyer about how to turn that nonprofit into profit, you can hire me. I'll give you some coaching. Okay, next, I misspoke earlier. I indicated that we had 7 candidates that we're going to present to you tonight. Unfortunately, Nanette Goergen had to cancel, so she will not be here. But I am pleased to introduce to you in alphabetical order. Now I'll go in order as they sit here. It makes a lot more sense. John Bowler. Our current mayor, Kit Bobko. Greg Savelli. Current Hermosa Beach City Councilman Jeff Duclos. Carolyn Petty. And Hany Fangary, Esquire. Okay, as with most debates, we have a series of questions that we will be asking the candidates. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to answer each question. Our timekeeper in the front, Matt here, will let you know. We'll let them know when they have 1 minute remaining, as demonstrated. Then 30 seconds remaining. Then you'll hear a bell at the conclusion of your allotted time. And if that doesn't stop you, you're going to hear from me. Okay? Sergeant at Arms. Now, in coming up with these questions, the Chamber Business Advocacy Committee reached out to all of the Chamber members, and we received numerous responses. We culled through those. We picked the ones that we thought were the best questions to present in the allocated time. And we think these questions present a cross-section of inquiries from the Hermosa Beach business community in general. At the conclusion of the round of questions, each candidate will be given 2 minutes to deliver a closing statement. Now, the way we're going to start this, the seats up here were randomly selected. We just dropped the name cards and picked them up off the ground and put them back where we picked them up there. So we're going to start with John with the first question, and then we're going to move to his left. Okay? And then we're going to switch it up. We'll start with Hany down at the other end, and then we'll move this way on the second question. And then I'll switch it up from there. Try to make it as fair as possible. All right. We ready for the first question?
We're ready.
Okay. John, if elected, what would be your top 3 priorities as a member of the City Council, and how would you address each of them?
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you all for attending. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy night. Thank you again to the Chamber for hosting this, as you always do. The top 3 priorities, when you're looking at where Hermosa is, after 8 years on the council, I'm looking at this thing, and I don't think there is a more difficult time that the city has faced in recent memory than it's going to face, particularly over the next year and over the next 4 years. So I think the most important thing is to have the city council being a source of objective information where we can have a fair hearing about all these very difficult items. That means that everybody up there, you should be able to trust to be able to give you objective information on all these critical issues that are coming before us. That's the first and most important priority. Now, beyond that, I think that the redoing the PCH aviation corridor, I think there's a good plan in place for a starting position on that. I think we need to take that forward, get that funded, and get that working. PCH and aviation are our major sources of sales tax revenues for the city. We have to start acknowledging that and start developing that into a business-friendly area that actually demarcates our boundaries with boundary posts coming in so you know when you're in the city, and then streetscape beautification with flowers, pots, street signs, all the things that go with it that give it a sense that this is actually a real business district that people care about. And when we do that, we can start drawing pedestrians, bicyclists, things like that. People who aren't using that area now can be drawn up to that area and create a thriving business district. My third priority is a little different. I was working on this. It wasn't necessarily on my agenda, but it's come to me. We worry and bemoan a lot about the infrastructure in Hermosa, and rightly so, with dealing with sewers and streets and so forth. But Hermosa's Wi-Fi system is an embarrassment. And I'm sorry, it's almost, we don't want to put our name with it. But if we can, actually what we need to do in Hermosa, we need to enlarge our technology footprint. If we can increase the area, increase the signal, start making this a wired city, because now we're all carrying iPads, iPhones, tablets, and people make their decision on where they're going to go for lunch or where they're going to go for vacation on those sorts of things. I think economies of scale have changed since we put that stuff in to the point we can afford to enlarge it and to improve it. And I think that would be a wonderful way to start drawing people back to our business districts. I would also favor enlarging it so it takes in more and more, and ideally all, of the city of Hermosa Beach, one of the nice things about being that small city. So those are, I think, that's a good first start on getting us started back to creating a more business-friendly city. I want Hermosa to be open for business.
All right, thank you very much, John. Ken?
Well, thank you all again for having this, hosting this. I'll get right to it. There are 3 things, and I think these are what everybody up here should be focused on. The first one is financial sustainability. We have to make sure that we treat all of the dollars that we take in as being very precious. And we have to make sure that we know what our finances are going to be going into the future. I'll talk about that just in a little bit more in a moment. We got to do the core stuff right. You don't hear us talking much about streets. You don't hear us talking much about the infrastructure in the city. You hear us talking about a lot of other things. I think first and foremost, what we are elected to do is make sure that Hermosa Beach has its core infrastructure intact and that it's functioning and that it's reliable. We need to make sure that we do that second. And third, but maybe the most important thing, is public safety. We talk a lot about public safety, and there are, some of you probably have heard from some of the public safety guys about certain things and other things. But let me assure you of this. That is the most important thing that we do here in this town. There is no one who sits at this dais or who is on the city council who thinks that there is another priority that is more important than your safety or your children's safety. One of the things that we did this year where we showed that was on the 4th of July, we finally took control of the city. I'm sure all of you remember 2 years ago or a year ago where we darn near had a riot down on 2nd Street. And the reason that happened is because we weren't prepared. It wasn't that the police weren't prepared, it's that the city wasn't prepared. And that means that the city has to plan, and we have to take that as a very serious thing every time we have an event, and every day that you guys wake up and walk down to the plaza, go out on the beach, the rest of it. As far as I did hear that.
Please silence your phones.
The other thing about okay, now I've got it. Core stuff. We don't talk about it enough. Do you know that over the last 2 years we only started paving streets? Did anybody notice that? We don't talk about paving streets. Did you know that we've got a $14 million sewer problem in this city? There are some places where if you take out the sewer, where the sewer pipes are, the sand is actually ossified because the pipes are gone. We don't talk about any of these things. These are the things that I think we have to talk about first on the city council. And once we take care of those things, we can start talking about other stuff. The last thing, or the first thing again, that I mentioned was the financial sustainability. You will hear a lot, and I'm sure there will be a question tonight about finances in this city. One of the problems that we have is that we're not exactly certain what our finances will be off into the future, because we keep doing things that we don't know exactly how much they cost. So I'd ask, is that one everyone?
That's the rule. Thank you, Kit. All right, great.
Well, thank you again, Chamber, and everybody for being here tonight. This is a great opportunity for us to get together yet again on our third opportunity to share our views on the issues that face us today. Kit and I are in agreement public safety is number one. I kind of took advantage of that at the last debate when he put it out there, and I closed with that. But it's true. The police and fire and your public works are the basis of the community. And if you can't walk on your street, you can't flush your toilet, you can't call the police or the fire department and have them show up, we don't have a community. And so public safety would be my number one priority, to make sure that we continue to provide and enhance our services. As your chief of police, I appeared in many of your living rooms and told you that the best part about living in Hermosa Beach is that the police and fire are never more than a mile away from your home. And that's true today, and it's just geographically unable to be changed. So that's a wonderful thing, and we want to keep that. You know, there's a lot of talk about trying to do other things with our department, or contracting out and things like that. But if you do that, you end up with the deputy coming out of Carson. You don't have your local police department, and so you definitely need to focus on that. That said, the next thing I would also put on the agenda is fiscal responsibility. We have to monitor what we do, but we have to not only monitor what we spend, but what we bring in and how we bring it in, which obviously dovetails very well with this group here, the Chamber, and bringing in additional revenue and good business in Hermosa Beach. As I've mentioned before, I think we need to bring businesses in that create a synergy. I use the example of the office building, the investment business that came in. There's many employees in there. Now they're all having lunch in our restaurants, and they're shopping in our stores. And we need to ask not only the businesses, but the residents of Hermosa Beach, what is it you want in Hermosa Beach? And oftentimes we tend to talk down to the community instead of listen up. And it's our job to make sure that we listen to you. Do you want to continue to shop at Target in Manhattan, or do you want to have the stuff that Target offers here in Hermosa Beach? And is it worth it to you to have it here? And then the third thing is also to do the business of the city in front of you. There's very few things up here, and I commend the council for that action the other night. There's very few things up here that you shouldn't know about. And I'm committed to making sure that you have full information on any topic, as long as it's legal for me to release it to you and put it out in front of you. And that means not just when I'm sitting on the dais, that means when you call me up and you say, Greg, I don't understand what's going on, can you explain this to me? You should be able to come in, or I should be able to tell you everything I can about that item, that project, what's going on, and do the public's business in the public. And I think it's very important that you feel confident that whatever the issue that's confronting you or confronting the city that you're worried about, that you can trust the people that are on the dais to tell you the straight scoop and give you the answers to the questions that you're looking for. And so that's my commitment on those three things.
Thank you, Greg. Jeff?
Thank you, and thank you to the Chamber for this event this evening. It's really nice to be here. First time I've been here as a seated council member. I've participated in these in the past as a candidate. In fact, as I recall, Maureen used to hold those cards up, how far back it goes, and we used to do these at Sangria, which is, I guess, reminds me what a great venue that was. If you ever sitting out there, anyway, I miss that site. But it's a pleasure to be here. And I would say a lot of these things that we're going to do in terms of priorities are kind of prescribed to us. We, for the first time ever, about a year ago, we created a strategic plan for our city. And it has a 5-year vision, a 30-year vision. A lot of it is, and it is a collective agreement between council members and staff in terms of priorities. And a number of those were touched upon tonight that I think that are important we move on. Obviously, we've talked about safety, but I put it in a different term. It really is, we've made a commitment to first-class service, that we want to be a city that provides first-class service to our residents. And we need to do that. And obviously, public safety is one of those areas. And right now, we're very challenged in that area. You know, we have a police department that's down with 6 standing officers. We have a fire department that now is not functioning really at national standards for emergency medical services, that has to rely much more than it should on our mutual aid partners, putting those relationships at risk. So we need to do a better job of figuring out how we can provide the things that you expect in that regard. I also would say the second one would be economic development. I'm sure we're going to be talking about that subject, maybe in other more specific terms later. But when I look at economic development, I tie that into PCH Aviation and the work that we're doing up there, and as to looking at this as a complete holistic situation. And I was one of the founders of the PCH Aviation Committee, and we're moving fast on that in terms of to develop a plan and beautify that corridor to enhance business opportunities. And I think we're also, as a city, bringing on an economic development specialist, first time ever in the history of the city, who's focusing specifically on economic development and working with our partners, the Chamber, obviously an important part of that. And then lastly, infrastructure for sure. And I would tell you in terms of streets, we've never paved more streets than we have in the last year. We've paved 38 streets have been completed in the last year. We just the other night allocated $750,000, 14 more streets this coming year. Years past, 70% of our streets were in substandard condition. It's just important for you to know that is a commitment that this council has made, and I'll ensure that we follow through. Thank you.
Good job. Carolyn?
All right, well, thank you for hosting tonight. I would say that what I believe is a very important objective as the city, we need to maintain our sense of community. And right now, we have one issue that we all know about that is eating away at the fabric of our community. And the question that has never been asked is, what is the role of city leaders in this situation? What role do we play? And in my opinion, we need to be the glue that keeps this community together. Because right now, it is ripping us apart, and we have one more year of this. So what I see happening is, just to be real candid, we've got people on one side of this issue that have taken a position and they feel very strongly about it. And then we have everybody else who is saying, I want to be educated. I don't know what my answer is yet, but I'm looking to you as the city leaders to help me, to get me to the point where I can make a decision. And what I feel is so important is that we have city leaders who embrace everybody within the community respectfully and understand what our role is. And that is to ensure that we do not drive a wedge through this community. Because this is a very small town, everybody knows each other, and it's just so important to me personally that we come out of this a year from now still maintaining that sense of community. So the second thing, it would be economy. So I believe the purpose of the city is twofold. It is safety and it is infrastructure. But in order to pay for that, you need a thriving economy. Something that I can bring, because I've been in the private sector for 25 years, I live and breathe that. I know what is important to business owners, and I know the importance of following through. So that's something that's very important, but you definitely need people who understand what resonates with businesses. The third thing that I see as an objective is infrastructure. As was mentioned before, our sewers require anywhere from $10 million to $14 million worth of infrastructure upgrades that we cannot afford. And the thing that's kind of interesting to me, or kind of not good, is that we all approved the UUT. And that brings us more than $2 million a year, and a large portion of it was supposed to go towards sewers, but it's not been. So last year when the budget was prepared, $700,000 was supposed to be earmarked towards sewers. But if you take a look at our budget, only $400,000 went towards sewers. And so the challenge that I think people face is when you're presented with a 300-page document and finance is not your forte, you don't realize what you really should be looking at. And instead, what was discussed, because I was there, it was a $500 newsletter. But nobody asked the question, where did the $300,000 go? And so that's where I think it is so important that there is at least one person up on the council that has a finance background.
Thank you, Carolyn. Hany?
Thank you to the Chamber again for hosting this. As far as my list of issues go, Carolyn vaguely referred to the issue that we're all talking about it, but I don't know there's a reason for us to be vague about it. The issue is oil. It's out there. We'll have to vote about it in a year. And as far as I'm concerned, that's one of the top priorities that I have. Not so much to oppose it, which is my opinion, but to educate people about it so everybody knows what's going on. At the end of the day, it's going to be your decision to vote for it. I think it's crucial. I think it's going to impact the future of the city for the next 35 years. It's not a minor issue. It's not something that we can talk about in vagueness and say it's important and it's splitting us apart. I think it's something we need to talk about it very clearly and make sure everybody knows what the issues are and make sure that we vote on it. And I think since we didn't get a chance to have an opening presentation, I'll take this opportunity to address an issue that I discussed with our Mayor Pro Tem recently on a one-to-one, and I know he has an ad in the paper today about this issue, so I want to make sure I'm clear on it early on. The issue is whether or not if somebody's opposed to oil, are they opposed to the settlement? And to make it clear, I am opposed to oil, but not opposed to the settlement. The settlement is a good place for us to be. We know what the number is. We know what it's going to cost the city if you vote no on the oil. And if I get elected, I'm not going to be looking for ways to go around the settlement. The settlement says what it says, and enforcing the settlement, for me, is just fine as long as people, as everybody, including myself, go out there and vote. And if the vote is yes, then the city is obligated to comply with what that settlement requires us to do. I'm hoping that the vote is no, but that's, as sitting on the city council, that would be my position, is to basically make sure everybody's aware of the issue and make sure everybody goes out there and votes, not to dismantle the settlement agreement, which I'm glad that we currently have. Second issue is public safety. It's been addressed a couple of times, but I'll just mention it very briefly. I agree with what Councilman Duclos said about the lack of resources for our police and our firefighters. Public safety is significantly one of the most important issues. I have a 9-year-old and a 13-year-old that live in the city, and it becomes a little uncomfortable for me to go in downtown area late at night on a Friday or Saturday night with them. So I think that's crucial. I think Kit mentioned about the 4th of July issue, and I'll just mention this very briefly. The reason why we had a better 4th of July this time than we did last time is we put the resources that we needed. We didn't get a grant from the sheriff. We didn't get people to be nicer this time than they were last year. We hired a lot of people to manage our city, and they did a good job to manage it, and that's what we need. You need the resources to get the public safety. And I'm running out of time. So the last issue is basically business development, which includes the PCH aviation issue, but basically being more business friendly, addressing the issues that our business needs, responding to questions that businesses have, making sure that the properties in our city that are vacant, that our people in the city are able to answer questions to realtors, to tenants, to landlords about what the property is going to be developed on, so that properties like the properties we have now in PCH don't sit around vacant for years at a time, not generating any tax revenue to the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Hany. You're lucky, Hany, because you get to keep talking now. Because we're going to start with you this time. It's like the fantasy draft. You got the 6th pick and the 7th pick, okay? And no fair anticipating our questions ahead of time. Now here's the second question for you, Hany. Many feel that the city should be run like a business and should be responsive in a competitive business world. With the large-scale retail and restaurant developments that are in the works in neighboring cities, for example, the Manhattan Village Mall, the second phase of the El Segundo Plaza, and the Redondo Beach waterfront development, to name just a few, what would you do to ensure that Hermosa Beach can remain competitive in this changing business climate?
To answer the first question, should the city be run as a business, I think, unfortunately, my answer is yes and no. In certain aspects of it, the city should be run as a business, and more for the chamber and businesses and interaction with the businesses, yes, it should be run as a business. But for the community, I think the reason why I'm here, or the reason why my family is here, is that we feel the sense of community in the city. We don't think of Hermosa as a corporation and trying to figure out how much money the corporation can make. We look at it as a community that we enjoy living here, we enjoy the people that we live with, and if you focus everything as a business, you can miss out on what makes Hermosa a community, and you miss out on attracting people and families and individuals to come in to want to live in our community. So you can't look at it collectively as a business. There's various things such as the beach and parks or what have you that you just can't look at as a business and see how much that gives a return to the city, because you're not expecting a return from that. The return is the appreciation for the people that live in the city, that they're enjoying these facilities that the city is providing and that nature is providing for us. As far as the business issues, Michael, that you mentioned, the city from a business standpoint and working with the chamber and others need to be really focused on being competitive. I think with Manhattan developments proceeding, potentially with Redondo Beach, I think putting in $200 million or so in their developments, we can't be the third little town that nobody wants to come and invest in. That said, I don't also want to be building in mansions in our strand either, but we need to balance it so that the businesses that are here continue to flourish, and people that are here that have 2 or 3 businesses here and they were thinking of a new business, they can open it up in Hermosa. They don't have to go to Manhattan or Redondo. One of the issues that came up in the city council meeting recently was evaluating the parking situation, whether or not parking different times of the day should be either free or reduced, because 12 o'clock noon on a Tuesday, a lot of our businesses probably can use more business, and people may be less inclined to come to Hermosa because of our parking situations or getting tickets or what have you. So that's one idea. The other thing is, again, from a city mind standpoint, I did some work in my engineering world working with the redevelopment agencies, and the idea of the redevelopment agencies was to basically improve the areas that they're working with and bring in nice, successful businesses to it. And I think what our city can do is have that kind of mindset. It's basically being proactive to let businesses either that are already in Hermosa know what they can do to expand and to be more successful, or businesses that are looking into going to Manhattan or Redondo or El Segundo or other towns, what we in Hermosa can offer for them if they come in and decide to stay with us. Because I think the competition between Redondo and Manhattan Beach going forward is going to be much, much tougher if we don't step up and allow our businesses to flourish and attract new businesses. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Hany. Okay, Carolyn, how do we remain competitive?
Well, okay, so the first question is, should we be run like a business? There are different types of businesses, right? There are nonprofit businesses, there are for-profit businesses, and there are service organizations. And in my opinion, the city is a service organization. We need to service our customers, who are our customers. They're the residents, they're the business owners, they're various stakeholders in this organization. But the reason I bring this up is because what I don't believe is that we should have revenue generation on the backs of business owners and residents. And to a certain extent, that happens today. The city has turned into somewhat of a revenue generation machine, using fees and fines and service charges. So fees and fines are charging you for parking, ticketing you, and then service charges whenever you transact business with the city. And so I think that mentality has to shift, because if you believe that you are a service organization, then you do not charge your customers excessively. So that's just a perspective that I would bring, and it's a different kind of approach. I understand that we need profits to pay for our infrastructure and for our safety levels, but there is a balancing act and there is a fine line. So in terms of how to be competitive, well, I was in the beverage industry for nearly 10 years, and that is the most competitive, cutthroat environment there is. I worked for Coca-Cola. If you wish to be competitive, it is somewhat innate in who you are, okay? It is a perspective that you bring. So, ways that you are competitive, first of all, you have to differentiate yourself. How are we different from the other beach cities? Why would somebody come here and shop versus Redondo or Manhattan Beach? Keep in mind that Redondo has the revitalization effort that's going on. It's going to commence. It's a $300 million investment. We have to differentiate ourselves. So what are some of the ways we do it? Well, some of it's our culture. Some of it's our history. It might be our surfing culture. It might be our history associated with music. We have different kinds of establishments here that do differentiate ourselves. We have St. Roch, we have the Comedy and Magic Club. Those are definitely different kinds of businesses that can attract people. Other things, malls. Malls have anchor tenants. An anchor tenant brings kind of a built-in fan base. We need probably one or two of those. I don't want to turn our town into Pottery Barn because I don't like that. But the idea is to bring an anchor tenant that brings in their customer base and create somewhat of a ripple effect across the community. Other ways we differentiate ourselves, we're competitive. Parking. This is my philosophy on parking. If Manhattan Beach is $1.25, we should be $1. If they're $1, we should be 75 cents. If it means that during the slow times in the wintertime we're free, so be it. But that is the idea of thinking competitively and being innovative. And that's where I think it's very good to have somebody with a private sector background thinking in that manner.
Thank you, Carolyn. Jeff?
Well, I think the first thing we have to understand is that, as we move into this area of recovery, in terms of economic recovery and just in general, that the economy is not going to recover in the manner that it did in the past, that business is not going to look the way that it did in the past, and we need to look beyond the present to what that future might be. And it's clear that we're in the midst of a shift that is as dramatic as the Industrial Revolution, moving from an industrial economy to an innovation economy. We see it. That's where the growth is. That's where it'll occur. And what we need to do, and what we can do, is take advantage of our small size as our city to make ourselves the kind of magnet to those people who create those businesses and those opportunities for growth that will ensure our future. I mean, one of the things that comes to mind is that, if we as a community, if we owned our power production, it's estimated we could reap about $1.7 million a year in savings that we could invest back into our community. We could do this. Not a lot of cities, there are a number of cities that are in the midst of this right now. Boulder, Colorado, Sonoma, up in Northern California are doing exactly this. And if you want to see we don't think much about that, when we're turning on and off the light switch in terms of that power. But we should think about it when there's a power outage, right? And we're out of power. And so I just think this is just one point of where the opportunities might be for us as a city. If we made this commitment to be energy independent as a community, we're sending a message to people around the world. There are investors that are out there right now that are taking a deep look at Hermosa Beach to see which way we're going to go. And that's where we differentiate ourselves. We don't have to look to Redondo Beach or to other communities. We will never have large malls. That's not us. We don't have to be that. We're the kind of community that the people who are going to come up with the vision and the ideas and the businesses that see in the future want to live in. We're a dense community. We're walkable. We have great nightlife. We have wonderful beaches. We have everything. We just need to build on what we've started here as a community.
Thank you, Jeff. Rick?
Well, as a candidate with 35 years of public service as my background, I can tell you that it's not a business. It can't run as a business in the sense of what you guys are accustomed to, what for-profit businesses do. However, it should run, and does run, business-like. In the sense of we should hire and train proper people, we should be transparent in everything we do, we should prepare, follow, and build a budget that's acceptable and within our revenues. And our business as a city is to create an environment where you thrive. We are supposed to get out of the way. We're supposed to build an environment where the people feel safe coming here, the people know that they're having the best quality schools, best quality service, as we mentioned earlier, that you know that you can operate in an environment to where if you need something, the city will be there to provide it. Not to be on your back, but to be able there to help you create what you need in this community to survive as you are the business folks. We do tax you. You pay a significant amount of taxes, but we can't make a profit. The law says even when we charge you a fee for a permit or for a function that we provide, we cannot make a profit. We can only recoup the cost that's involved, and that is what our fees are based on. And those are evaluated annually. And in fact, our finance director does an excellent job of comparing what we charge to everybody else. And in relation to what Carolyn said, yes, we are in a competitive market. I can tell you, that we have value pricing in parking enforcement in Los Angeles, which is what she was talking about. And it creates, you have to remember that we're not just looking for money out of parking enforcement. We're looking at turnover. If it's too cheap and the car's parked there all day, your businesses are not going to get people. The idea behind meters and time limits and rules is to turn traffic over. It's not just to write you a ticket. The idea is to get out there and get the traffic and get the customers to come and see you. And that's part of what parking enforcement is. It's not just a punishment. It's not just for the money. The other thing the city does that you guys don't deal with, like as business owners as much as we do, is if there's the crisis, if there's the earthquake, if there's the exploded sewer, the exploded electric vault, we have to come to the forefront and make that happen. We have to have the networks established. We have to have people, and it's going to cost us money that we didn't expect to expend. And that's why we have to keep a surplus. We currently have a surplus of 16% of the budget to make sure that when a crisis occurs, we react. Because the longer the city's out of service, the longer you're out of business. And it's our job to make sure that we get everything back up and running all right away. And if you didn't notice that, just last week, Edison was here for 3 days in the evenings trying to reestablish these connections and improve our power grid down here, which is clearly one of the focuses in the future of fixing that grid because it's not working well. But the city had to make sure that they were here, they were out here to make sure. And that's what we do as a business.
All right, thank you. Kent?
This is exciting stuff, so I'm going to go fast. What can we do? You know what we can do because you've all seen it. There's some of you in here who have benefited from it and also suffered by it. You know what it takes to be competitive in this town because you've seen it on Upper Pier Avenue. When we made a commitment as a community to improve our street and to make it more walkable, more pedestrian friendly, to upgrade the amenities, to make it a place that people wanted to come, the businesses thrived. There's a couple of the businesses owners that are here tonight. Brian from Wicked, Lori with Gumtree, Jed Sanford's got Abigail. All of you know, because you used to walk on that street, that it had a lot of potential, but we weren't realizing the potential. Now that we've done it, Mr. Tucker and I served on the committee that actually worked on getting that done. Mr. DiVirgilio was one of the third vote that actually got it done. We know what to do. We know what to do. And when we do it, the businesses come and the community flourishes and everything rises. So that's what we've done. We know what to do. Now what do we do going forward? We do the same thing on Hermosa Avenue. We do the same thing on Hermosa Avenue. There's no reason why we can't match Hermosa Avenue right here from 15th Street down to 8th Street with what we did on Upper Pier Avenue. And I'll just ask the question rhetorically. Do you think that the same types of businesses will come if we show the same commitment down here that we did on Upper Pier Avenue? I think so. I think all of you know that as well. Longer term, what do we do to improve business? We bring people into the community who have money that they want to spend. Now, I know that there are some of the bar owners in the room here as well, but this very hotel that we're sitting in, the room rates for this place during the summertime are sky high, and good on them for it. Because if you ask the folks who have hotels what people spend outside of the hotel, they will tell you that they match what they spend for the hotel. So if someone comes here in the summertime and they want to spend $700 a night to stay in our lovely community, guess what they're going to do during the day? They're going to take that $700 and they're going to go out into the community and they're going to put it in all of your businesses. So the obvious thing is, well, we need more of these types of hotels, don't we? I think we do. And in fact, the city council, when we did our strategic plan, decided that upper level hotels, another one's going to go in on 15th Street, that's the key to our success. Mom and pop shops are the businesses here in Hermosa. That's just the way, that's the nature of the beast. So we have to figure out how to maximize that. So what we have to do, bring people into town who have money that they want to spend, and show the commitment as a city that we're willing to do the things that will make it easy for those businesses to flourish. And again, we know how to do it, because if you don't believe that we do, walk with me when we're done here, and I'll walk you out on Pier Avenue. Peter Tucker and I can do this. We can walk you. You can't go 10 steps before you'd be sick of us telling you all the things that we did on that street. We know how to do it. You need to have people who understand that that's what we should be doing as a city on your city council.
All right, thank you, Clint. John?
Thank you. Well, in terms of operating like a city, I'll tell you a quick story. First of all, for many of you know, I owned a business in town for 25 years. I've owned a bar and restaurant. I know what it's like to try and run a business in this town. I know what it's like to try and start a business in this town. When I was on the council, way back when, 20 years ago, we started an issue with helping the folks in Marineland buy their park. It happened a couple of nights ago, 20 years later. Now, if it's my business, I say I want this done tomorrow and it gets done. If it's government, it just doesn't function that way. But you can make changes, and one of them was touched on earlier, is we've got to realize that we are serving a client, that the community is our customer, and it's about customer service. So we've got to make sure that we're doing everything, both with businesses and residents, to expand that service and to make the city accessible and relatable for the problems that you're having. Now, a couple of things going forward. First of all, I'm really not interested particularly in competing with Redondo or competing with Manhattan. They're decidedly different places. Redondo threw their downtown away decades ago, and now they're trying to figure out what to do. Manhattan's got its own issues. There's an old saying, you dance with the girl that brought you. And in Hermosa, that means that we have a lot of small businesses. We've got a lot of individual, unique stores that draw people. We've got a fun little downtown where people can come and enjoy something you don't find in LA. This is serious small town. We've got St. Patrick's Day parades, and that's what we attract with. That's who we are, and that's what we need to market to people. So we need to tell them that if you're going to come down here, you're going to have some fun. I'm sorry about that. I have an expression, but it kind of carries over in terms of where we go forward with the downtown and with local businesses. And that's that, like it or not, Hermosa's always been a party town. It's always going to be a party town. The question is, who do we invite to the party? And I think more and more it's time that we start inviting our own residents. We've been bringing in people from outside and everything and trying to depend on them. But we have a wonderful group of people with high disposable income. A lot of people just moved in that are taking their money and spending it in Manhattan Beach. Now that ticks me off. We don't want you taking your money to another town. We want you spending it in Hermosa. So we need to attract more businesses, high quality businesses that are going to respond to the needs that you have. You don't attract high quality businesses by being anti-business. So Carolyn hit it right on the head. Start dropping these parking fees. Start dropping some of these trash fees. Start dropping some of the business fees that we raised by 400% not too long ago. And start making this place business friendly again, and we don't have to worry about competing with those other guys.
Thank you, John. Okay, with this next question, we're going to start with Kit, and we're going to move to Kit's left, and we'll finish with John. Again. And this is a question actually posed by Hany. Okay, you ready for this? He's what? Whether you know it or not. The current city council has chosen to remain objective until a proposed oil project is placed on the ballot, which would fulfill the city's obligation in the recent settlement agreement. If elected, would you honor this settlement with McPherson Oil and E&B by placing the proposed project on the ballot? Okay.
Have I talked to anybody in this room who doesn't know my answer? So let me get right to it. There's a settlement agreement. The settlement agreement saved our hides, collectively. The alternatives to settling this case were catastrophic, and thankfully, the council voted 5-0, a unanimous decision, to pull our city out of the abyss. Friends, it is literally a question of whether we wanted to be Hermosa Beach going into the future or not. We chose to be Hermosa Beach. The settlement is done. The question now is whether you want to have oil drilling in your town or you don't. Our obligations under the settlement agreement are very clear. We have to put that question before you. Now, people are talking about I'm pro-settlement, but I'm against oil. That's sophistry. It's really an internally inconsistent position. You cannot hold that. Let me tell you why. If I'm sitting on the city council and my obligation is to make sure that this issue gets on the ballot so that you can decide it, I'm going to negotiate as a member of a 5-person body, the city council, with an oil company about the parameters of that project. That is called the development agreement, and that is going to be the actual thing that goes on the ballot. Now, when I'm negotiating, if I've already taken a position that I'm against oil, does that mean that I'm going to negotiate worse? Am I going to negotiate to the best of my ability and put the best question on the ballot if I've already said that I'm against oil? Or am I going to negotiate poorly and put a bad question on the ballot, hoping then that I'll be able to work against it and that you, the voters, will know that it's bad and vote it down? Let me ask you another question. We're working on an environmental impact report right now, which is going to decide all of the environmental aspects of this oil project. Do you feel better, pro, con, against, neutral, indifferent? Maybe you just learned about it the first time tonight. Do you feel better or worse about the information that's going to come out in that report, knowing that I'm against the project? Does that give you confidence that I've objectively evaluated all of the alternatives? Or would you rather me remain completely objective and keep my cards to my chest and serve the people of this community who are for it and against it, and then leave it to you to decide? It is internally inconsistent. It is dangerous for people to say that they are against oil but for the settlement. Last thing, there is no way to undo the settlement. The only remedy that's available to E&B, should we not put it on the ballot, is to go to court and get what the lawyers call specific performance, which means a judge would tell us to put it on the ballot. I'll ask you another rhetorical question. When that was negotiated, who do you think is going to end up paying the attorney's fees according to the contract?
Right?
Well, I'm against oil and I'm for the settlement. So, I'm apparently dangerous. All I can tell you is I have an opinion, and you should have an opinion, and you should have an informed opinion. Your opinion should be based on fact. You should go tour the facility like I have had down in Huntington Beach. You should listen to the residents. We have very bright residents both for and against. I've had a guy on Walk Street that's willing to put the San Onofre in his backyard. And I kid you not, other council members have met the same person, or candidates, I should say. But in any event, don't make this decision on emotion. There is a settlement agreement. We will follow the settlement agreement. I'm committed to following that settlement agreement. And if the community votes no, we're going to vote. We are going to get ourselves out of it financially. If the community votes yes, we're going to continue to follow that agreement and make sure that the operational plan and everything else that goes along with it is to ensure the utmost safety of the residents and the community of Hermosa Beach. You know, I hate that phrase where they go, "Hey, look," because it always appears that you're talking down to people. But look, I say that facetiously because Hawthorne. If we look at what happened in Hawthorne, a water well expelled 2 weeks worth of methane gas. It evacuated several residences and closed the 105 freeway. Okay, like a comedian telling the same joke, I gotta go on to something else. The other one is the derrick just collapsed in Huntington Beach. Now, no, that was not an E&B property, for those of you that thought it was. It's an affiliated company that was with the bankruptcy, but it's not an E&B property. E&B made it, it's a very open company. They've given me a lot of good information, and I go to them when I have questions, and I go to other oil professionals, not just the vendor in town. So ask those questions and get that information. We just had another one now in Ohio just last week, where it had nothing to do with the facility, but they were piping the oil from the facility to the distribution point, and something happened in the pipe, and it caused it, and it's pressurized. Now keep in mind, there's no pressure coming out of the one that they're planning on drilling other than the pressure that they put in, and that's a little more technical than I even thought I knew. But the bottom line is this pipe is pressurized because it has to carry it to the facility to process it. It broke, it seeped up to the surface, and it swallowed a whole farm in Ohio, and the oil is still sitting on the ground, and they're still trying to determine how to close it. They got to go down into the pipe and shut it down. So there are dangers in this project. Will I have an open mind? Absolutely. E&B has brought forward many things to me that say, look, this is why this won't happen here, and I'm going to be committed to telling you what they have to offer. And that's what the EIR, that's what all this stuff is going to put on the table for you to decide. We will not decide, you will. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Jeff?
Thank you. This may shock people, but I agree with Kit in some things. The settlement...
I'm glad I'm sitting down.
I know, that's why I waited. The settlement was the right thing. I support the settlement. The settlement does not presuppose a position related to oil or not for oil. It basically takes the decision out of the hands of 12 people we don't know and into your hands to make the decision. Now, what is our responsibility as a council? Our responsibility as a council is to be the clearinghouse for information, to make sure you get all the facts you need, and to make sure, as part of this agreement, they get the opportunity to make their case for the project they're going to present. But that said, you need more than that from us as candidates in terms of where we stand. And I will tell you, based on the project description that was delivered last year, I would not support that project right at this time. I would not. And I'll tell you why, because there's not enough information and too many questions have been raised that remain to be answered. Now, I would also submit to you that this development agreement and that discussion is going to be extremely limited in terms of what the council is going to do and their authority in terms of that project. Basically, if it's very strongly contingent on the environmental impact report and what the requests come out of that. But for us, our parameters for certifying that project are limited. And so this negotiation process is limited as well. If they determine, E&B decides, they want to go with the project they have, based on whatever recommendation we might make as a council, that's what will go before you. It's really not our position to make sure that it's really up to them. How do they, and that's what we all need to wait for, right? How do they respond to the concerns and questions that have been raised that will be in that report, that will be in the health study that we're conducting, that will be in the economic study that we're independently conducting. And that's our job, to provide that for you, and then ultimately your job to decide.
Thank you, Jeff. Carolyn?
All right, well, I'm going to take it a step further. Yes, I believe the settlement agreement needs to go to a vote, but I am going to take it a step further. So just to make it a little more complex, there is in California, there is, every contract in California is covered by a covenant, and that covenant is good faith and fair dealing. And what that means is every contract that we enter into in this state is covered by good faith and fair dealing. So the issue that also should be discussed is this. It goes way beyond just putting it to a vote. The only reason that the oil company agreed to settle this and to give us the opportunity to settle this is because there is a clause in the settlement agreement that gives them the opportunity to present their case to the voters. So think about good faith and fair dealing. If you have council members who at every opportunity talk about how they are against the project is bad, we're going to have all of these horrible circumstances, guess what happened to the good faith and fair dealing clause? It's gone. So what they are trying to do is unduly influence the outcome of the election. Okay, they might be right. They might be right. However, if we violate that clause, we will be again in breach. And in my opinion, I don't think it is good for us to have council members who will figure out a way for us to be in breach. It could go to a vote of the electorate. Everybody could vote no. But if it was not a fair business proposition, then we will again be in breach. Now, in terms of us stepping back and letting them run their project as they wish, well, in the private sector, that would never happen. Okay, if you were to enter into a $3.7 billion project with a company, would you ever sit back as council members and say, okay, well, there's not a whole lot I can do about this because you're running the project? Absolutely not. What we would do would be to hire the experts in the field who are at the top of their field who could actually manage the project at an unbelievable level. Now, again, I'm not saying I'm for it, but all I'm saying is the council members need to provide the information to the people so they can make an informed decision and do it in such a way that we are not again in breach.
Thank you, Carolyn. Hany?
Thank you. I think I'm dangerous number 2. I'm as dangerous as the chief. I believe that I can't be opposed to the settlement. I'm sorry, opposed to the oil drilling, but be consistent with the city's obligations under the settlement. And frankly, if you want to vote for somebody who has no opinion, please vote for Kit. If you want to vote for somebody who has an opinion, I'd encourage you to vote for me, because I do have an opinion and I make it known. I don't think that you can be on a city council and evaluating an issue that impacts a city for the next 35 years and have no opinion. I mean, I am a lawyer, so I'm familiar with the legal contractual obligations. I am not familiar with any case law that says if you have an opinion, you're not acting in good faith. I can have an opinion and I can manage to act in good faith. Those two things do not go against each other. On the issue of the settlement, I know Kit referred to the settlement as a miracle. This is the best thing that ever happened to us. I have spoken before the City Council at least 2 or 3 times and thanked them for entering the settlement. I think the settlement is a good thing, and I will honor the terms of the settlement. But to classify it as a miracle that basically, something that we absolutely didn't expect and it came out of nowhere, the whole company had lawyers working for them for several years, and they knew what was going on. So I don't think that we got anything by them to get a miracle. And then secondly, the thing that I think Kit doesn't disclose to people when talk about the mock trial information is the mock trial that was just actually disclosed by the city today. That happened in 2009. In 2010, there was another decision that was passed on by the court that changes the entire platform of the case. And I have it here, and I'm happy to pass it on to anybody that wants it. But basically what this 2010 decision that came up after the mock trial numbers came out specifically says that the old code expressly permits the city to revoke a drilling permit, a drilling or well permit, if the permittee operations pose a danger to the life and safety. And that didn't occur in 2009. In 2009, all the mock trial was trying to do was evaluate how much damages we'd be paying. And the mock trial people, as they were instructed, gave us the numbers. And the numbers were pretty high. They're in the millions. But that part was not part of the case. That part of the case became in 2010. So if we would have done in 2011 or 2012, we were preparing for this litigation, I've got another mock trial, and we're talking about these mock trials, then we can give them some credence. But to evaluate where we are with the settlement based on 2009 mock trial results that had no relevance to what the case was in 2012 when this case was set for trial, I think is an incorrect assumption. And then lastly, on the EIR issue, I just want to point out that I have experience dealing with the EIRs. I think I would do this objectively, I would do this in good faith, and at the end of the day, I want to make sure all the information is out for you so you can vote on it, and it will get on the ballot, and you will vote on it based on the information that you have.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we brought all the way over to you, John. You're up.
Thank you very much. In answer to would I make sure that that's on the ballot, I'll make it a complex answer. Yes, it will be on the ballot if I had anything to say about it. Everybody needs to have their say on this. That needs to get done. Well, I'd love to believe that all these people are as objective as they say they're going to be. I really do. But I kind of harken back. If you were going to a baseball game and you found out that the umpire was betting on one of the teams, how much faith do you have that all those calls were going to be accurate? That's the problem. We have people who are invested in an answer and want to see that answer be one way, and you're depending on them to give you objective truth. How do you think that's going to work out? Now, there's a lot of complexity into this issue, but there's an old saying. I seem to be going to a lot of old sayings this evening.
You're old.
But yeah, I'm old, exactly. I have the corner on old sayings. But basically, the guy said that the problem with the things today isn't about ignorance. It's about that people know so much that just ain't so. And that's what we see a lot of. We're having all these wild objections. There was too many questions remain unanswered. Well, yeah, they haven't had a chance to get answered yet. That's the purpose of what we're supposed to be doing. And if you can't get a fair hearing on that, what good is having answers given to you if you can't depend on the quality of the information that you're getting? It just isn't going to work out. And the problem is that, remember, if we screw this up, if we trip that trigger and they say that we're not operating in good faith and that we have people on the council who are trying to drag us in one direction or another, we go back to square one. Remember square one? 500 million, 750 million? Let's not do that. It isn't that hard to pretend to be objective at the very least. That's the job. Come on. You people want to elect people that are going up on the city council, and their job is to hear all sorts of issues, not just oil, and they're supposed to keep an open mind and listen to you and bring in the facts and make a decision. That's the job. Now, if you can't do that, you shouldn't be asking for the job. So let's get people up there that can be objective and give you the information you need.
Thank you, John. All right, for the next question, we're going to start with you, Carolyn. And we're going to move this way. And then...
The lifesaver for him.
I think you put glue in those. All right. Swallow. Okay. The term, quote, business friendly, unquote, has been brought up a lot the past few months. What would be your definition of being business friendly, and what are some examples of what you would do to help local businesses succeed?
All right. Well, I sat in the strategic planning session. I was the only candidate, aside from the incumbents, who actually took the interest to sit in the strategic planning session that happened in January. So just so everybody knows, this actually is our strategic plan, and the number one goal of the city of Hermosa Beach is to be carbon neutral. So when we talk about being business friendly, number 5 on our strategic plan is overall city economic development policy strategy, which I'm not quite sure what that actually means. But what that says to me is being business friendly is not a priority. Because if you are not at least in the top 3, you're falling off. And so we talk about being business friendly. The city talks about being business friendly all the time, but they actually do not practice it. And I'll give you some examples of how we are not business friendly. I'll say it again, parking. Okay, when somebody goes to Soul Baby, because I was talking to Gina about this, but I could kind of cite every business owner, and they spend $40 on a shirt, and they walk out with a $50 ticket, they're not coming back. When somebody goes to Java Man and buys a $3.50 cup of coffee and gets a $50 ticket, they're not coming back. It is the most anti-business kind of philosophy I see. Even things such as simple as the free parking, where you can park for an hour. Who can go out to dinner in an hour? Nobody. So, I mean, it's kind of like penny wise and pound foolish. How much money are we really generating by that? And what is that doing to our business owners? The reality is that they're not on the radar. I talk to business owners, and you know what they say to me? I'm not going to make another investment in this town. If I can get out of here, I'm getting out of here. And you want to know why? Because this is their livelihood. Okay, and when we don't understand that, well, not we, I do, because I'm a business person, okay? But when the city doesn't understand it, because it tends to attract people who are not from the business world, they're the ones who are hurt in the end. I understand what it is to have to meet payroll. I understand what it is to have to pay rent because I work in the private sector for a small business. So until you have at least one person on the council who comes from that world, it's not going to change. Okay, other things that we can do that are huge. We have so many undeveloped properties in our town. Look at Hope Chapel. It's just sitting there. It's non-revenue generation. That's an opportunity. Look at the Northwest Corridor of PCH. It's been purchased by Skechers. Nothing's happening. The city has decided, Tom Backley has decided that he's going to collapse 3 of our economic groups into one. And what I would want to do, I want to be the liaison and the leader of that strike team, because that's what they're going to call it. So I think the person who's perfectly positioned to lead the strike team is somebody like me. They're also going to hire an ombudsman, I can't even say it, an ombudsman, who is going to be somebody who goes out and tries to cultivate business coming into our community. But I'll say it again, until you have at least one person on the council who lives in that world, it will be a lot of chatter, but you won't see a lot being accomplished.
Thank you, Carolyn. Okay, we're going to move this way to Jeff.
Thank you. Well, I certainly agree with the concept of the parking situation, and that came before us just the other night as an item, and I supported and actually brought forth the motion for creating a pilot program that we hopefully will begin in January, where we provide free parking during the day for people in our downtown area. I mean, that's in response to spending a lot of time in the downtown and spending time in those businesses and seeing their sense of frustration. And we all want to create businesses that are attractive to daytime trade. That's been an objective, a long-term objective that we're trying to do. In terms of the city's commitment and the chart, I would just submit to you that we've created an economic strategic plan. I just have a draft of it here tonight. We don't have a carbon neutral plan, by the way. We do have a draft of our economic plan. So in terms of its priorities for the city, I'd tell you that it's very high on our list of things that we need to do in terms of doing a comprehensive, and basically what we've not done before. Instead of talking about developing one street, we have to talk about how we're going to develop economics, the economic picture in our entire community. You know, when Pier Avenue was being worked on, and I guess justifiably so, everything else in the city essentially stopped. We weren't paving streets. We weren't doing anything. We did that street. We can't afford to do that anymore. We have to develop all of our business corridors, and PCH Aviation has never been touched upon. It brings on a significant amount of revenue for the city. And one of the things we're going to do is create a sense of place. When people drive into Hermosa Beach down either Aviation or PCH, they're going to know they're in our community. It's going to be an identity that we'll be proud of, that will signal to them where they are. So I think a lot has been done. It's not that there's a lot more that can be done, but I would submit to you that it is a priority and will continue to be one. And I certainly will support anything that will enhance our business operation, particularly develop downtown business. And lastly, I wanted to put a shout out to Nancy Comaford. I have no idea who Nancy is. I've never met her. But Nancy is the owner of the property where the Green Store is. And Nancy made a commitment when the tenant left that it was going to remain what it always had been. We need more property owners that make that kind of commitment to our community.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, Greg?
Yes, thank you. I agree with the direction so that the city manager is headed right now with a strike team task force approach to determining what we can do to develop and enhance the existing businesses and not just bring in new businesses. You know, most of you know this, but this is a kind of a bipolar city. We want to make improvements, but there's a business community and there's the residential community. And very nice restaurants on Upper Pier right after it was redone, as Kit was saying, wanted to make it even better. They asked for different things. And the community surrounding them, even though they've been there for years and they trusted their operators, they did not want to make that change, and they voted and made their voices known at planning commission meetings and things like that. So I bring that up because what we need to do is we have to find a group of people that is a balance of the community, not just the business side. It has to include the residential side, and we have to make sure that what we bring or what we encourage is what the community wants, and not just what somebody's business model says is going to work. I fully agree that entrepreneurship and bringing people in to try new ideas is welcome, and we need to encourage that, but you also have to match it up with the customers. Here's another example of the kind of bipolar community that is fun to try to work with, especially as your chief. It was very interesting. Well, I used to get the complaints all the time, Chief, the Iron Man, it's gone out of control, you got to stop it. And then I would go to the concerts on the beach, and they would be standing there with their glass of wine going, Chief, isn't this so great? When are you going to do something about the smoking on the beach? I said, as soon as I get done with the wine, I'll get to the smoking. And I say that just so you understand. Another good thing, we have a beautiful, historical, almost marquee at the entrance to our community. It talks about branding our city, as Jeff talks about. There was a proposal for a low voltage, very nice electronic one. We send guys over there with a truck, and they park this big truck out there spewing diesel gas, and they get up on the thing, and they change the letters one at a time. But wouldn't you think it would be nice to have a quality, well-done, designed system to where you can turn it on and say, Gumtree's got a special today, and say, hey, look, folks, there's stuff down here. Today there's a sale at the surf shop. We can't be that. We have to be more reactive. We have to be able to change that instead of having 3 guys in a truck go up there and go, oh, there's going to be a chamber event. It should show up all the time. And we should have that control, and we should have somebody, that's my last point, is we need to have someone in the city that's their job. Someone that's professional trained, not just somebody that's on staff now. We need to find somebody that knows this business and works to recruit businesses and would run that type of system and would be the liaison between this task force, the city, the chamber, and all of us. But I think we can do it, and I just, again, remind everybody is we have to please all sides. It doesn't mean they have to stop each other either. We just have to make sure that we attempt to please all sides.
Thanks, Greg. Okay.
Well, I think we say the words business friendly as though it's some kind of magical incantation. We mistake those words for actually being business friendly. And candidly, I don't think we particularly are. I'm reminded, talking about old sayings with John, of the old saying about how easy it is to grow corn in Iowa from a desk in Washington. If any of you have ever come to one of our city council meetings and watched us micromanage people's businesses to the nth degree, you would be appalled. I know there are some of you in here who have been actively micromanaged by us. That's not business friendly. And after we're done micromanaging your business, to pat you on the back and tell you that we're business friendly ain't business friendly, friends. What does that mean? What can we do better? We have to have an ability to deliver consistent outcomes to people who present their businesses to us. What does that mean? It means that I don't think as a council I should be in the business of deciding how big the daggum TVs are in your restaurant. There are some up here who do. I think when someone comes to our city and they want to start a brewing company in an industrial part of town, that we give them a chance. And we don't chase them off to Torrance, where, by the way, they're very successful now, because we're worried about the smell of oatmeal that brewery might produce. That's a true story, friends. That is a true story. If you think that we are business friendly, I would ask you why we have so much difficulty with the businesses that we have here today. We're just not. You have to have a consistent outcome, and when people invest their money, they want to know that their investment is going to be safe. And the way that you assure them of that is you treat them consistently with what you write in your codes. We don't do that either. I'm not going to bang on this one too much. I hope that we get to talk about transient occupancy tax. I'll remind you all of something else. At the first debate, and boy, isn't it amazing how politics and debating changes positions. At the first debate, some of the gentlemen, philosophically and physically to my left, were talking very, very sternly about how they could raise the TOT by 2% and it just wouldn't have any impact on anybody at all. Nobody's even going to notice. Let me tell you what, if you come and talk to the people who own the hotel where we are all sitting tonight, they will tell you that is the difference between them being profitable and not. And why? Because most of the business that comes here is bid by businesses that are coming from out of town. The guys on my left, they don't know that, and they don't care. They need to get the money into our coffers to pay for other things. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Kate.
John?
Thank you. Well, this is a wonderful venue because we have everybody here from the Chamber and lots of our downtown business owners have graced us with their presence. Could I have a show of hands of everybody who thinks that Hermosa Beach is a business-friendly town? All right. Thank you, Harold. I hope that's instructive for the people sitting up here because they think it is. They think by passing all these ridiculous ordinances and ridiculous fees, you're being business-friendly. They don't have a clue. Now, I did bring a visual aid with me. This was from my first campaign in 1993. It still applies. My agenda has not changed. When we ran that, we are sitting in one of the benefits of my council. We brought this hotel into town. We redid the plaza. We created a dynamic business-friendly district where people were arguing and fighting, trying to get into town. We can do that again. It's real secret. Get the hell out of business's way. Simple as that. The further cities get from telling businesses whether they can have a dog dish in front of their front door, or a chair and a table, or a bowl of flowers, the better businesses will do. That's what the hell do we care if you have a dog dish in front? But we're sending city officials around to ticket you and fine you for those kind of horrible violations. You guys know how to make money. You guys already know how to make money. All you're waiting is for a chance to do that. And if the council can just sit back and empower businesses instead of trying to regulate them, they're going to be amazed at what happens in this community. See, I don't really care whether you pack your to-go items in styrofoam or not. That to me was not a big decision, but it's indicative because that's a city who thinks they have to tell you everything you can do. This is about your individual rights and our rights in the city as citizens. I don't think the city should be coming around telling me where I can smoke and what I can put my take-home gear in and what I can take my groceries home from the grocery store in. I'm an adult. I can make those decisions. I have a reusable bag if I want to take it to the grocery store. Or I can use the plastic bags. That's my decision and the business's decision. And keep the hell the city out of all this silly stuff. And let's get back to doing business.
Hany?
Thank you. First, before I address the business-friendly issues, I want to just follow up on a comment that John made regarding the city council position and the oil issue, and he referred to the city council as umpires. And unless I'm looking at a different settlement agreement than John is looking at, I think you guys everybody here knows, the city council is not going to make the decision on oil, you are. So we're not referees, we're not umpires, we're just taking action as required by the settlement agreement. So the fact that you can be in the city council, have a position, and enforce the agreement doesn't make you an umpire, doesn't make you a referee. It just makes you a city council member that has an opinion, and there's nothing wrong with that. On the business definition issue, and the business-friendly issue, I think I'm hearing from a lot of my neighbors and friends and people that have businesses in Hermosa, the general gist of is the city's not business-friendly. And examples I get is they do something in their business, they're getting a call or a visit from somebody in the city says, like, you can't do this or you can't do that. Or they give a call to the city about some basic maintenance issue, something that needs to be fixed, and it takes weeks or months to get it done. And I think everybody else in the room here, I think, has more specific examples of why the city is not as business-friendly as we would like it to be. As far as things to do to get more business friendly, I think some of the suggestions that were already made that the city manager is already doing are good to have point persons at the city that answers questions for the businesses. My thought, as far as other things to do, is to have specific information on the city's website relating to specific either areas or specific properties. For example, to make it easier for a realtor or a tenant or a developer to know if a property, for example, in PCH that needs to be developed, what are the parameters? What are they looking for? What are the parking requirements? What is, if the city has any incentives to provide, what are these incentives? How can the city provide that benefit? And to have a specific contact person at the city. I mentioned briefly my experience before with working with redevelopment agencies, and the redevelopment agencies' goals were to improve the development of these properties. I think what we need to do at the city level is to have somebody at the city, phone number, email address that people can go to for specific areas or for all areas if it's that simple, to answer questions right away and to provide answers to businesses that are looking into developing or opening up. The other thing is to go and ask the businesses, what is it that the city can do to facilitate their business? One of the examples, for example, that came up in some of the meetings is having bike racks. Does it make sense to have a bike rack in a specific area in the city? If a lot of the people that are coming into a specific business are going to come in on their bike from their home or from Redondo or from Manhattan, and that provides more business for those businesses, the city should work with these businesses to accommodate that availability so that more people can come in using their bikes to give business to these properties.
All right.
Thank you.
No, thank you. All right. You guys have been way too calm, so we're going to heat things up a little bit. We're going to start with Jeff. We're going to move this way. If the upcoming election ended the way you hope, and you are one of the candidates elected to the Hermosa Beach City Council, which other two candidates would you ideally... Which other two candidates would you ideally like to see elected to serve alongside of you, and why?
How did I get so lucky? You said this was a random draw, right? Yeah, it's a random draw question. Well, it's an interesting one because it is an interesting one because we have a lot of good candidates up here. We're very fortunate in Hermosa Beach. I see this all the time in terms of as a council member, people come before us to be on a commission or a task force. We have some of the smartest, best people ever in our community at what they do. And we have some great candidates up here for seats. But I think what I'd look for, what I would want to see, is a level of functionality that doesn't exist in our current council. In terms of a collaborative effort, people who are willing, not necessarily like-minded people, but people who are willing to work together and listen to each other. And unfortunately, we don't have that to a great degree. And I've seen the dysfunction that causes. When people have strong issues, strong positions, and even if it becomes the city law or it becomes something that a procedure that we need to follow, some people refuse to do that. They feel they're beyond the rules, they're beyond the laws, and that's unfortunate. We can't have that as a city. So for me, I mean, obviously, I have great respect for Chief Savelli. I knew him as a resident, and I knew him as a council member, as a chief. I know what he did for the city as the chief of police. And people remember what it was like in this city before he came. It was phenomenal what he has done, and so I know his commitment to service. And I've become to know Mr. Fangary too over the years, and his commitment to having run before, and his consistency in terms of the things he wants to do. And as somebody, as people, all people who have a stake in the city, as homeowners, family men, I think I would have no trouble serving with them.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Okay, Carolyn, we're going to go to you next.
Okay, well, I am a financial person, so I make no secret of the fact that I believe it is important that we be fiscally responsible, that we are stewards of your tax dollars, and we need to treat that seriously and with responsibility. Last year, and this is all public knowledge, but last year it became public that our meter maids cost us over $102,000 a year between their salary, pension, medical, and insurance. And so when Kit Bobko suggested that the city consider just the possibility of studying to outsource this, I went down there and I supported him on that. So we are of the same belief in terms of that, in terms of fiscal responsibility. Now when it comes to government, I love the old adage, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. You know, those scariest words that you hear. I believe in less government intrusion in our lives. That's just something that I believe. So if you look way to the right, my friend Mr. Bowler and I see eye to eye on that. But since you want a little bit of controversy, just to heat things up, you want a little bit of controversy? I'll tell you who I am polar opposite of. That's the gentleman to my left. And the reason I say that is because for me, just personally, I consider myself to be a highly ethical person, and anybody who would sue the city when they don't get what they want, that to me it's unethical. And I think that our country has turned into something that is so litigious. And when somebody gets what they don't want, what do they do in this country? They sue. And the values that my husband and I impart to our children is, that's not the way you should do things. Absolutely, as residents, you want to make your voice heard, and we want to hear from you. But there is a line that you do not cross. And when you single-handedly cost the city $120,000 when we didn't do what you wanted, I think that crossed the line into unethical behavior. So, but to end it on a positive note, two people that I would absolutely be honored to serve with are our existing councilmen. And that's Pete Tucker and that's Michael DiVirgilio. I've known Michael since 2006. I think he's amazing. He is sincere, he is thoughtful. We are so lucky to have him. And Pete, you know what you are is when there's all the controversy in all the city council meetings, you're kind of a rock. You're kind of this stable influence. And you are thoughtful and you care. And I appreciate both of you. And I would consider an honor to be up there on the dais with both of you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Yeah, he's looking at me. It's like, do I get to go next? Yes, you do, Hany.
You did one thing, just get spiked up, right? To answer your question, the two people that here that I would be honored to serve with if I get elected is Councilman Duclos and Chief Savelli. Councilman Duclos has great experience serving on the city for the last 4 years. He has demonstrated his support for public safety and trying to improve the safety and security of our downtown area. I have two kids that are 9 and 13 years old, and it's getting to the point where on a Friday or Saturday night, it feels uncomfortable walking around downtown at night with a bar crowd. And Councilman Duclos has that concern, and he is for the last 4 years has been trying to get as much control in the downtown area and enforcing the city's rules as much as possible, and I appreciate that. He's also shown his commitment for the environment throughout the 4 years, and he was recently elected to be on the California Coastal Commission, which is, I think, a great position to be, and an honor for us, for Hermosa, to have somebody on the California Coastal Commission. Chief Savelli, when 2011, when I ran before, I reached out to him just to connect with him, get more information about the city. He was kind enough to meet with me as soon as I reached out to him, gave me his contact information, cell phone number. I was available to answer any questions that I had. He has obviously great experience with the city, with our Neighborhood Watch program. He's been to, I don't know, probably hundreds of homes in the city. We served our city as the chief of police for 6 years. And I think we've mentioned several times in this debate and in prior debates how important public safety is, and who can do a better job at public safety for our town than somebody who's actually been our police chief for 6 years. So if I get elected, obviously I think his experience that he brings into the city council will be significant, and he's been a public servant for 30 years. But since I have 1 minute left, and Carolyn was kind enough to bring in the issue of the lawsuit and the ethics. First, on the ethical issue, and Carolyn mentioned this now for the first time that I've heard, I think Kit mentioned it before, if you want to be ethical, get your facts right. I did not sue the city. There is no lawsuit that has Hany Fangary versus the city. It's a lie. And when the issue regarding this litigation came up, Carolyn was one of the people that actually came up to the City Council and the Planning Commission and complained about the issue. There's, I think, 20 or 30 people that came out and complained. And the fact is that the city violated the law, and there's certain homeowners that decided to take action. I did not sue the city, and I was not the lawyer in the city. The homeowners went to a lawyer in Redondo Beach that actually brought the lawsuit. I did participate in the lawsuit going forward as a lawyer for the homeowners, but it was not a Fangary versus City of Hermosa Beach. And if you want to be ethical, please get your facts right instead of accusing me of being unethical.
Thank you, Hany. Okay, John, over here to you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I'm pretty simple and straightforward about this. What got me involved is watching, got me up off the couch, which I didn't want to have to get up off of, was watching what was happening to business in this community, and watching the restrictions and the ridiculous ordinances and things come down and taxes and fees come down one after another on all our local businesses. So I'm here as a pro-business candidate. If I got elected, I would want people who shared that vision with me. And I think it's pretty obvious, but to state it clearly, Red Rover, let Kit and Carolyn come over. That would be the team that I would pick. Now, there's a reason for that, besides that I've seen Kit and Michael be dependably pro-business on that council, often as voices crying in the wilderness. But as we know, 3 votes make a lot more difference than 2. So hopefully if we can get one more pro-business person up there, it can be a swing and we can start to bring this city back around. Now, I do have to go into, I guess, to say why not on the others. The issue that Hany just raised kind of goes to the point, because I really don't care if Hany sued the city or not. He certainly had the right to do that, or anybody who did sue had the right to do that. And to try and collect damages. The problem was that the lawsuit that he helped draft wasn't dismissed. It was laughed out of court. You read the judge's remarks. It was laughed out of court, and that's my concern. Do we want somebody on the city council who can't craft anything better than that? Because not only did they lose, but they were just tossed away, discarded. I don't know that I need the city getting involved with that kind of outlook. Thank you. I've seen Jeff just, the thing about the city is I've been on a council for 8 years where we all work together. Very different people, strong points of view, but we all managed to put that aside and work together and get all the things done that we've done. Now, in his first year, his big complaint is that everybody isn't cooperating with him. That isn't the way it works. Teamwork, you got to pull together. If you're not getting along with somebody, you make an effort. You bend a corner. You make sure that the job gets done. It's bigger than your personality and your wants and dislikes. It's about the citizens of Hermosa Beach, and they have a right to expect respected civil debate up on that council. And if you're not giving it, hit the road.
Thank you, John.
Kit?
Well, I'm going to decline. I'm not joking. As someone who has been, I think, as many of you know, the recipient of some unwelcome attention, and the reason for that, of course, being that I have positions and that I will set my feet and I will defend them. I know over the last couple of days that it is not a nice thing when people disagree with you and do things that folks during elections do. It's particularly not nice when those things happen on your own city council. But having said that, I think that everyone here with me at this table tonight knows from my example what they're in for. And I'll be doggone, it's tough sometimes. And that anybody is willing to sit up here. Mr. Fangary is taking away from his family. Carolyn has 2 little girls at home. Jeff has other interests. I know he likes to surf. The chief has honorably served LA for 30 years. John Bowler was a Navy man. Everybody up here has shown gumption to step forward and put their name in the hat. I mean, there's a reason why they call it standing for election. because you have to stand there, and it's tough. So I tip my hat to everyone who's here with me tonight. I would be honored to serve with any of them. And again, I want to thank Mr. DiVirgilio and Mr. Tucker. It has been a great honor serving with them as well.
Thank you, Kit. Greg, you're on.
Very good. John, I have to ask though, you said you got up off your couch. Was that because Roger Bacon? For those of you who don't know, he always comes to the council meeting and says, "Get off the couch." That was part of his commercial for Roger Bacon Motors. But he called me today, of all days, which was very nice, to offer his support. But that was very nice of him. But it just reminded me of that statement when you said, "Get off your couch." Anyway, I agree with Ken. Anyone up here is qualified to serve you, and you will get a good measure of their blood, sweat, and tears in the service to you. If I was to pick two, as the question is asked, I would say one from my right and one from my left. Okay, no, just kidding. Come on, that was fun. It's going to take us to sink in. But anyway, no, as I said from the beginning, I'm not running against anybody. I'm running for Hermosa Beach. I'm not going to be the politician in the sense of I'm not going to go after or any other candidate for perceived ills or positions. I think, as I mentioned, I have positions, and it's okay to have that. I will say that I've participated in every forum. I've attended any coffee, any event that I've been invited to, and I can tell you through that experience, I've been invited to more from my friends Hany and Jeff, and met many of the people that they campaigned with, and I learned a lot about from listening to them what they stand for, and what they are willing to do for us as community members, and I share many of their concerns. I think if there was some difference of opinion, I think Jeff and I have a little bit difference of opinion on, for example, Measure B, which I'm surprised we asked that question there. There's a little difference on how we can approach that issue, and Jeff's a little more strict than I am. But I think that engages a good debate. You don't want to be just like the person you're sitting next to. You want to be able to have a debate about the issues from all sides of the question. And that's what's healthy, and that's what's good for good decision making. And that's what you want on your council. You want people from diverse backgrounds and diverse positions to sit up there with you. And those are the people that I think will do that. I think Hany, having a young family in town, built a home here in town, going into the school districts, I think, not necessarily the school district, but having the kids in school and knowing what it means to be a father in town, I think that's important. Jeff's gone through that, and now he's an experienced council member. I think he will do well there. I do believe that with my 35 years of public service experience, that I can provide almost the inside scoop, so to speak, on how the city operates, how employees operate, and what we need to do to make sure we all get along. And I didn't see any signs go up. Was that it? I wasn't looking, sorry. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Greg. Okay, Greg, we're actually going to start with you on this question, which is probably going to be our final question. We may have a little extra time at the end. I'm going to make an executive decision to give you a little more time for your statements at the end. We were going to allot 2 minutes, but since we're missing a candidate, that is going to put us a little bit ahead. So we're going to give you a little more time. 2 minutes is probably too short anyway. This question looks like something out of a science exam. Pertains to carbon. Don't worry, it's not carbon dating, John. We're not going to determine how old you really are. Okay?
You can actually tell by the rings on his mustache.
All right, great. The city has made a priority of striving to achieve carbon neutrality. How important of a topic is this to you? And if elected, how would you balance the desire for carbon neutrality with some of the needs of local businesses?
Well, that is a very good question, and without knowing all the details of how they bounce into each other, the first thing obviously, that I would want to do is educate myself, but it is a commitment of the city. This city council, as Carolyn mentioned, the city council has made it a top priority to be carbon neutral, and as assuming a seat on that council, I'm going to be supportive of that mission. As I mentioned in an earlier debate, I think that the city should be in the position of incentivizing people to become carbon neutral, but not regulating people to be carbon neutral. And I think we ought to be able to establish a balance there to where innovation is rewarded, and if they are able to save our footprint, then that there should be some sense of accomplishment and some sense of incentive by the city. But it should not be that I order you to do this. I think we're not there yet. I think there's a lot of people in the room and that know a lot more about this topic, and they will tell you that now is the time. And I'm looking at listening to that, as well as people that will tell you, no, it's not. I mean, there isn't right at the moment anyone out there that will tell you one way or the other. There's opinions, and like I mentioned earlier on, how do you form an opinion? You listen to the facts, and you come and you try to make an informed decision, not an emotional decision. But I do support the goal of being carbon neutral. I do support incentivizing to reach those goals. In fact, when Pete was the mayor, he took the pledge to reduce our water usage, and we achieved that. We were one of the first cities to achieve our reduction in water usage. And so there are things we can do, even in a small community like this, that make a difference. Most importantly is a leadership role. Do we want to be leaders in this fight? And that's where I think, yeah, we do. Why should we wait for somebody else to do it? Why not be able to incentivize and show that we can do it in our community so that others will say, hey, they did it, why can't we? And build up from there. But again, it's more based on an education process. And what does your business or residents do to inhibit our carbon footprint? And if we can make easy methods, incremental methods, I should say, not necessarily easy, but incremental steps to help reduce that carbon footprint, there's no reason to be against it. Whether you agree with whether it's a cause and effect situation or not, it doesn't hurt to limit or restrict our carbon footprint.
Thank you, Greg. Going to you, Ken.
Okay. The night is getting long, I know. So here's the real question. Do we want to force you to do it, or can we convince you to do it? And let me give you two examples, one good one and one bad one. On Tuesday night, we decided that we were going to go to LED lights on our public lighting. And there is an incentive program with Cal Edison to help us do that. And what we're going to do is we're going to front some money. They're going to install these new LED lights that have a longer lifespan, and they're actually better lights, and replace the old ones. And there will be a commensurate energy savings for us. But in addition to that, they're just better lights. If you talk to the folks who are at Edison, they'll tell you that those lights make it easier to discern color. Now, why is that important? Well, when the cops are looking to see what color that car is that's driving away, it sure makes it easier for them if the LED lights are out there. That's a great example of a win-win for the community. We're saving money, we're utilizing incentives, and we're making it literally improving the quality of your life. That's a good example. Let me give you a bad example. Styrofoam. We were through our shoulders at a socket, patting ourselves on the back when we banned styrofoam. Did we ask any businesses about that? No. It was illegal the day before it happened, and it was illegal. It was legal the day before it happened. It was illegal the day after. Has anyone stopped taking styrofoam from out of our community out onto the beach? No. All we've done is increase the cost of the businesses in town by making something illegal that isn't illegal in Redondo Beach. I had someone come up and tell me that they don't go to the Jamba Juice here anymore because they don't like the cups, they leak. If you ask any of the folks who have restaurants here, they'll tell you that when people do their takeout now, instead of giving them a styrofoam container, they have to give them a bamboo or a paper container in a plastic bag that's lined with a piece of tin foil. Now, all of us know who've ever taken anything out of a restaurant that that's no good because your car smells like it, and then the next day it's all over the inside of your refrigerator. Now, is there a better solution? I don't know. And guess what? We didn't really care. We were just so anxious to make sure that we banned styrofoam. I don't think that that's the way that we should make these decisions.
I think that it should be a question of persuasion as opposed to a question of coercion. And right now on our current council, you have folks who believe they have 3 votes, and so they are going to coerce you to do things. I disagree with that entirely. I do not think that that is a good way to do business, and I would oppose that in the future.
John?
Thank you. Yeah, it seems that we have a magic word in Hermosa. And all we have to do is say the word green and attach it to any other project, and we're all supposed to jump up and cheer. And it just doesn't strike me that way. See, I lived here a long time. Back in '75, I remember that we were very concerned about global cooling. True story. And that scientists were predicting that the Earth was getting cooler and the ice was going to expand and it was going to dramatically affect us. And we were supposed to start making all sorts of adjustments to our lives to prevent global cooling. Well, then all of a sudden, the data didn't start matching up to the program, and they found another way to change that, and then they discovered it was actually warming, not cooling. So I'm a little skeptical sometimes with the evidence that's being predicted, but more importantly, we're in Hermosa. Think about that for a minute. We've got the cleanest air in Southern California, except when the Santa Anas are blowing. We've got fabulous air. We've got a clean white sand beach, and our beaches and our oceans get A's every time we have grades. We're doing a great job. Everybody in this damn city is walking, riding a bicycle, rollerblading. We're on every alternative method of transportation you can imagine. If you get in your car, the longest commute in Hermosa is still 1 mile. So we're going through all these changes to make us green. Hell, we were green years ago. We're doing great. We're doing great. Now, sure, we can change. When they did the Upper Pier Avenue, they installed a stormwater diversion system. Best damn thing you could have done. Just increased our water purity by a factor of 10. Great stuff, but we didn't bring any news vans out for that. And we didn't do any press releases for that. It was just something that happened. Kit was talking about the decision last night. Another one. There's a perfect example. A great idea. It's going to save us money. It's going to be better for the environment. You didn't have to say it was green. It's just a good idea. Makes sense. Going to save the city money. Give us better lights. Why do we need a whole carbon program to come to a simple decision like that? Yes, it makes sense for the city. I want to keep our city the way it is now. It's wonderfully green, it's wonderfully environmentally sensitive, and we don't have anybody telling us how we have to do that. We have a history of proving that Hermosa loves to be green, and our citizens will work to make that happen. We don't need to have the city coming around telling us how to do all that. We're perfectly capable of doing it ourselves as adults. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, we're going to jump over to you, Hany.
My answer is the city made that commitment. That commitment is important to me. I think it's one of the things that puts a label on a brand in our city. We call ourselves the Green City. The City Council has made that commitment, and I think we should do whatever we can to make sure that we satisfy the carbon neutrality requirement. As far as balancing with other priorities, I think if we have that branding of our city as a green city, that will attract businesses that have that as an incentive for them. There are businesses out there that want to come out to a city that has that as one of their priorities, that has the charging stations in our public streets to come in and have their cars parked here and be able to charge while they're out visiting or shopping with us. There's a lot of businesses that's what they're in the business for, and they'd like to have their offices in Hermosa Beach because Hermosa Beach has that green label. So I think in terms of balancing things, maybe what I would think is the benefit that we're getting out of it rather than the damages or the disadvantages out. Because I think if we put that obligation and we're serious about it and we put that as the brand name for our city, I think it'll bring in more businesses into our city and it'll put us basically on the map as a city that's basically advancing this issue and basically ahead of a lot of our other cities in the South Bay. On the 1 minute that I have left, again, I keep going back and forth with with John throwing things at me that I feel I have to respond to. I don't know, John, if you were not listening to me when I said this before, but I was not the lawyer in the lawsuit. I did not draft the complaint. If you have a concern about the complaint, the lawyer in the lawsuit's name is William Clark. He's in Redondo Beach. It's all public record. You can go talk to him. So if you think that the complaint wasn't drafted correctly and you could have done a better job, maybe you can talk to him about it. But all I did in that case is I covered some hearings. I attended some hearings. I did pro bono. I did not get $1 out of the city or anybody else. And I did it because, unfortunately, the city violated the law and some of the homeowners had the right to have their case heard. But I was not the lawyer that drafted the complaint. And when you say about the case being left out of court, I have no idea what that means. But frankly, unfortunately for us, the city of Hermosa Beach has a lot of cases that got left out of court as well. That's why we're dealing with this all that we're dealing with. So if you lose a case, you lose a case. But I don't know what it means when you get left out of court. Thanks.
Carolyn?
All right, well, I think we all share something because we all live here. We all do care about the environment. Otherwise, why would we be living by the beach? So I think we all share the same passion, but I think what's very important is that everything has to be in balance. So if we can save money, do it. Okay, one of the things that's been discussed is that the Civic Center and the Community Center are nearing the end of their useful life. So as we go to potentially reconstruct those buildings, if we can embrace those concepts and we save money, and I think that is definitely doable, then that totally makes sense. The schools are probably going to have to build another school because they're bursting at the seams. Again, if they can embrace some of those values, then absolutely. But what's very important is that we do need to keep things in balance, and we do need to make sure that we don't expend more resources than we need to in order to satisfy people. Because what I still contend is the role of the city is twofold. It is safety and it is infrastructure. And when we start veering away from that, then that's not good. Because right now, as it stands today, we're probably not doing the best job that we could in terms of maintaining our infrastructure. So I think in terms of priorities, I want to stay true to those two. And then when we can do the others in a cost-effective manner that frees up money so we can start repairing our sewer system better, I'm all for it.
Thank you, Carolyn. Jeff?
Thank you. Well, just, I guess if we're in the fact-correcting mode here, let me just correct one fact. In terms of styrofoam, that regulation came to us as a recommendation by a Green Task Force. They worked on it for about 3 years. They brought it before us after meeting with all business owners and discussing this in terms of the benefits of it. So when it came to us as an idea, it was completely vetted when it came to us. But rather than dealing with that, I want to go with something that Kit said when he talks about lighting and incentives. There are incentives to do the right thing in terms of environmental protections. There are disincentives not to. For example, by not using styrofoam for food containers, we got an incentive from the Regional Water Control Board in terms of our output from our city. Probably saved us maybe about $100,000 ultimately by prohibiting smoking in public spaces. We got an additional incentive for doing that. There are incentives for doing these things. But I just want to go back, because one of the things I serve on is the Santa Monica Bay Restoration Commission. It's one of the things I have the great privilege of serving on behalf of my city and the South Bay COG. They just celebrated their 25th anniversary. And 25 years ago, a lot of you who were here 25 years ago, I was here. I know what was going on. Kit's right, I love the beach, I surf. The beach out here was a death zone. 25 years ago, you would see no marine life, you saw no birds, you saw no kelp, you saw nothing. It was a death zone. You know why? Because polluting the ocean was a business right. That's the way it was treated by business. That they had no responsibility to protect the thing that we all live here and we all enjoy. So when people don't take the responsibility, businesses don't take the responsibility of protecting the thing that we all share, then somebody else is going to take it for us. So, and that only happened because they made this, it was a federal estuary area, so they got the funds to start this commission to do the work of restoring that resource, and we've done it. So, you know, I just have a little bit of a problem with this idea of, you know, leave us alone, we'll jump on the city bus, we'll have a good time and do whatever we want till we run it into the ditch, and then we'll get off and we'll go somewhere else, and you, the people who live in that community, who are that bus, are stuck with what remains. We can't live that way. You know, when we did this, the styrofoam ban, we didn't hear from the local businesses. You know, we heard from the lobbyists, from the plastic industry and the state grocery associations. You know, the only people who are making a difference are cities. About 90 cities basically have imposed similar bans to protect their assets.
All right, thank you candidates for your candid answers to our questions. We, as a chamber, really appreciate that. We have about 20 minutes left if we're going to stay on schedule. So there's 6 of you times 3, that equals 20.
He's a lawyer.
Yeah. So we have each 3 minutes. Does that work okay for the timekeeper? And since we started here at the beginning, we're going to start down at the other end with you, Hany. You're on.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks again for the Chamber for hosting this. To sum up, I moved to Hermosa Beach because I tell my friends, my family and I got addicted to Hermosa Beach. We were living in North Redondo, and we found out ourselves every weekend being here. And when we decided to build a house to live in for the rest of our life, we knew that it had to be Hermosa. So when we moved in and built our house, we told our kids to get really comfortable in the rooms because they're probably going to be there until they go to college because we have no plans to go anywhere. And that's why I decided to run in 2011. I knew that I was going to be here for the long term. I wanted my experience and my knowledge to hopefully be a benefit or an impact if I get elected to the City Council. So I ran in 2011. I got a chance to meet a lot of people, a lot of you here during that time frame, and I maintained that connection. I think it just made me feel more as part of the community, so I enjoyed that. And regardless of where this election goes, I think I benefit from just the campaign process of getting to meet a lot of people in the community. I have 25 years of experience doing environmental, construction, engineering, and environmental legal work. And I think from being on the City Council, if I got elected, that experience would be very helpful to manage and evaluate projects that the City Council has to evaluate, provide input, or at least understand the input I'm getting from either contractors or city staff regarding the issues that are before the City Council before I make the decisions. And hopefully my input based on my experience with these projects will be helpful going forward. I also managed essentially construction projects at various properties in California and Arizona. I went through a time where my annual budgets for the projects I was handling was somewhere between $5 and $10 million, and I was basically responsible for making the priorities for these projects, and I think that will also be helpful for me if I get elected to manage the projects that are before the City Council to evaluate. I think we talked enough about the oil, so in closing I'll just summarize that, again, based on my environmental experience, I am personally opposed to oil. I think that the environmental impact in our city is not worth the risk is not worth it for us to proceed with it. But if I get elected, I will enforce what the agreement requires us to do. I will act in good faith. I will act as objectively as I can be, even though my personal opinion is opposed to the drilling of the oil. And then one of the other issues that two quick issues that I have in the 30 seconds that I have left is security in the downtown. We talked about this before. Even though I'm voting no on Proposition B, I think that the reason Proposition B is before us is to evaluate the concerns about the safety in downtown, and I think it gets the dialogue going. So I think the city has good tools to be able to manage our downtown better, and that's what I'd like to do if I get elected, but I think B goes too far. And then the last thing I mentioned is if I get elected, we think we need more cooperation and coordination between the City Council and the school board. I think our schools are a significant part of our community and a significant part of our assets and has a significant impact on our property values. And I think we need to do a better job with the City Council and the school board to work together to provide the benefit to the schools that the schools need. Thank you.
Thank you, Hany. Carolyn?
All right, well, I've lived in Hermosa Beach 19 years, and I started really paying attention to city politics around 2006 when something was done and it kind of changed my world. They restriped Pier Avenue and it created gridlock, and so that's when I started actually paying attention because it affected me personally. So for many years I stayed in touch with some of the city councilmen and I would weigh in with my opinion. But last year there was some financial information that was made public. It was when our pensions were rated one of the worst in the county. And when I realized that, I was blown away. I had no idea that we had that going on. And then more financial information was made public. And at that point I decided I needed to go down to city council, look them in the eye, and tell them what I felt their responsibility was. And that is that council members have a fiduciary responsibility to represent the residents, not a select few. So after that, it apparently got people's attention, and then I was encouraged to consider running, and I thought that was funny, because I am not a politician. But this went on for months. And then in January, I had a moment where I was walking my kids to school, and I was saying hi to all the people I knew, and I saw people running on the Greenbelt, and I thought, I am so lucky to live here. And I know, because of my background and what I've done, I know that if I got involved, I could make a difference. And at that point, it ceased being funny, it became serious. And so I went home and I sat down with my kids and my husband, and we talked about the importance of stepping up for what you believe in. And it was important to me that they support me because this is a tremendous time effort. And, but we all believe in the importance of community service in my family. And so we decided at that point I needed to step forward. So in terms of my background, I've been in the private sector for 25 years. I worked for Coca-Cola for nearly 10 years. I was their division controller in San Diego. Then I managed sales and distribution centers for them. The last operation was 300 people. It was a $130 million organization. It was quite significant. Then I went to work for the studios, and more recently I worked part-time for a data security company in Torrance as their controller. So one thing that I want to say is that this has been an unbelievable experience for me. I've lived here for so long, I felt that I knew so many people, but along this whole campaign route, I've knocked on doors and people have opened their homes to me. They've invited me in and they've said, thank you for doing this, because I don't want to do it. And just, it's been this incredible embrace. And I just want to say thank you to all the people out there as I continue to knock on their doors and they continue to offer me water, which I couldn't take because where are you going to go if you're like knocking on doors? Talk about that one. But it's been marvelous. And I just say thank you to everybody in this town. It's been exhilarating, it's been exhausting, but it's been wonderful.
Thank you, Carol. Jeff?
Well, thank you. Again, thank you to the Chamber for this event. It's been an interesting evening. I've really enjoyed it, the discussions we've had. And I wanted also to take the opportunity sort of to thank the public for the opportunity to serve over the last 4 years in City Council, as your council member, as your mayor. It's been an amazing experience for me. I've lived in the city for 34 years. I've raised a family here. My wife is a school teacher here. I have deep commitment to this community. I've been engaged in this community in a number of different ways for a number of years. Before I was on council, I joined the volunteer and police program. I still do this just to annoy Chief Savelli. I've been involved with Art Walk and helped make that grow and develop it into the asset that it is for the city. And during my time on the council, I've had some great opportunities to really help improve the health and safety of this community. I've had the opportunity to represent you on the South Bay Council of Governments. As I mentioned you, I've had the opportunity to serve on the governing board of the Santa Monica Bay Restoration Commission, and also have had the great honor of becoming the first Hermosa Beach resident appointed to the California Coastal Commission since the 1970s when it was formed. I take these honors seriously as representing you, as an extension of my community, as an opportunity to further serve my community. I certainly would ask that you give me the opportunity to use what I've developed over the last 4 years as a council member, because there's no school for this. Being a council member, you learn by doing. It's I felt I was prepared, having run several times before, and having reassessed why I wanted to do it and why I wanted it, because I felt it was the highest level of community service available. I felt I was ready, but I have to admit there's no way to measure the challenges just the dynamics of sitting up there until you're there. But there's also great rewards, and it's been a great reward to me in terms of just my personal growth, I think, as an individual and certainly as a council member, to have had this opportunity. And I just ask you to extend the additional 4 years, and I'll be happy to serve on. Thank you.
There you go. Greg, you're on.
Well, thank you very much. Many of you, laughed at some of my humor, and I mentioned this before. I do tend to put the light side on some of the issues, but it's always, good to do that from time to time. I want to thank all of the members up here that have participated in this grueling race, and thank you for, participating in this. I have brought with me bags of Savelli candy, Lifesaver for Hermosa, and you're going to have kids at your houses on Halloween, which is the 31st, and I'd like you to, give out my candy. To all the kids.
And also remember, Savelli is
a lifesaver.
Okay, Willy Wonka.
And they're located on the table out there. There's a big box. Anybody in the room, help yourself. But that's really that was one of the things that I sat down with some of my friends in the community that said, well, we want, not necessarily the gimmick, but the idea of what are we about? And I'm about life-saving. I'm about public safety. I'm about making sure that you can feel safe in your community, and I'm going to ensure that this city takes all necessary steps to maintain what we have and improve upon it. It's a vital function that we perform, and it's the number one function that the city must perform for you. And I don't mean that just because I was the police chief, because it's just important to have the good stewards. It's all these things are part of public safety. It runs a theme throughout the city. It's not just police and fire, but I'm honored to have the support of both the police and fire departments and their associations. One of the things that came up during this discussion is, do you think that we're biased because we have an opinion? And we're not. The bottom line is I served as your chief of police for 6 years, and I didn't always agree with what you wanted, and you guys didn't always agree with what I wanted. But the bottom line is, I spoke ethically, I took an oath, council members take an oath to serve you in the best interest of Hermosa Beach, not the best interest of Greg Savelli. I'm going to protect the interests of Hermosa Beach, bar none, and that's where I come from. It's going to be what's good for the city of Hermosa Beach. Just a little bit about my background. I don't always talk about it, but excuse me. I have a bachelor's degree in business. I haven't, you wouldn't be successful as a police leader if you haven't done some business. I have a master's degree in criminal justice. I've attended the FBI National Academy. I'm a graduate of the West Point Leadership Institute. I am a solid person with a strong ethical background, and I will make good decisions for this community. Heck, I'm a realtor. Come on, we're the realtors in the room. And that's important. Yeah, I know, a little love for realtors. I'm a realtor, I'm a broker, I ran a business out in the desert for a number of years, but the bottom line is that's important to knowing the value of your homes, and what happens in Hermosa affects the values of your homes, and that's why I have a unique position on that. I'm also a notary public, anybody needs a signature. But I just want to, again, over my career I've dealt with many serious things and have been the lead in many crises, and you want people that have dealt with crisis on your council, and that's where I really stand out differently from my opponents, and where I've been in the trenches, I've dealt with the crises, and I will be there when you need me.
Thank you, Greg. Okay.
Well, one of the great things about being mayor is that you get to go out and talk to different groups. And a couple of weeks ago, I spoke to Leadership Hermosa. And one of the students in the leadership class asked me, I think, a very prescient question, and I want to share that with you now. She said, Kip, why do you want to do this? And over the last few days, I may have asked myself that same question. But the answer is a real easy one, and I hope all of you will ask yourselves these questions when you're evaluating candidates. And my answer to her was this: it's about public service. It's about serving something that is greater than yourself. As many of you know, I am an Air Force Academy graduate. I come from a military family. My father was a career fighter pilot. I have an uncle who was an astronaut. I have a little brother who's a graduate. And in the military, there's a saying in the Air Force, we say service before self. And that's how I've approached this job, and that's how I will continue to approach this job. Some of you may have heard or seen things lately and wonder, why in the world would anyone subject themselves to that? And I'll tell you, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all. And the reason it doesn't bother me is because it's not about me. It's about positions. It's about standing your ground. It's about doing what's right. It's about doing what's right. And when you do what's right, you have no fear. And you can stand and listen to all the slings and stones and arrows and everything else. So when you go to the ballot in November, I want you to know that it has been my great honor to serve you over these last 2 terms. And I want you to know that I will continue to take the punches because I think it's worth it. And I want you to know that I'm pleased to do it, and it has been a great honor to serve you over these last 8 years. I would ask you for your vote on November 5th. And if you'd like, I will stick around a little bit afterwards. You can always email me, kit.bobko@gmail. Well, I think somebody sent out a flyer today with all my information on it, so you can just grab one of those and find my phone number and email. But there's my website, kitbobko.com. It has been a lot of fun with you all here tonight. Thank you.
John?
Well, thank you all for taking the time to sort through all this. We, I'm sure, as a group, are all thankful for the attention you've shown and the interest you've shown the candidates throughout this campaign, and thank you again to the Chamber for hosting this. For good or ill, most of you already know me. I've been 8 years on the council before, so I'm not going to try and tell you wild promises about what I'm going to bring and what I can do. You pretty much know. What I bring is an institutional knowledge of Hermosa. I've been here since 1975. Now, I know several of you have seniority over that, but it's still a pretty good chunk. I have an appreciation of what this city is and what it is we love about it and what it is we try and keep. And I'm trying to keep that on track, to be honest with you. I'm trying to keep Hermosa pretty much the way it's been, the thing that we always love about it. What I'm noted for, when we were on the council, we had 5 people, like I say, 5 very different personalities, but we managed to work together for what was right for the city. We approached things with a common sense approach. Didn't have big agendas, weren't trying to bend it in one way or the other. You took each issue, you weighed it out, you listened to the people, you made a decision based on what you heard. That's, I think, what you're expecting from your city council. That's what you elect people to do. And over the next 4 years, we're going to have some real critical issues. And you have to think real hard, who are the people that you want making those decisions? Because we can tell you what we're going to stand for on this or what our position is on that. You don't know half the stuff that's going to come at you in the next 4 years down the council. We're going to have to make decisions, issues are going to come up. What you need to think about is, how does that person make their decisions? How much information do they gather? Do they use common sense? And are they approachable? Can I go up and get a fair hearing in front of this person? And I'm basically willing to give you my 8-year history, take a look at what we did, what we've done, and think about what we can all do in the future if we have that kind of council. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, John. And I have one more question for the candidates so that we can end this with some accord.
With what?
Some in agreement. Accord and satisfaction? What do you think of this audience? All right. Anyway, I'd like to thank the candidates. I'd like to thank all the members of the board of directors for putting this together, and especially I want to thank the audience for coming out and being so patient and cooperative.
Michael, we'd like to thank you.
Thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you. Good night, everybody. And don't forget to vote November 5th.
Well, you can officially go find a farm sector. Everybody has to sit there going, okay, bad choice in the seat. For a while. Seriously, kept looking at it. I couldn't hold my thought. I was trying to figure out what. Over like 4 or 5 times. Nice to see you. got a handful.
That worked out great, didn't it? Absolutely, you can see it, it's visible right there.